I'm Nick, and if you were to ask me right now what hardware I would choose for a gaming PC, it would go a little something like this. Some of the parts I had on hand, some stuff I went out and bought for this gaming PC, and what we're gonna do as well is I wanna show you what the performance is like, but we need to build it. So let's do a build guide thing, but before we build a PC, you're probably going to need an operating system. So here is a word from our video sponsor.
This video is brought to you by VIPSCDKey.com. Have you ever installed Windows 11 only to see the watermark of death? You don't need to fork out a couple of $100s for a key. You can grab one from today's video sponsor, from VIPSCDKey.com for a tenth of the price. You can use our code GEAR to get 30% off for this month only. How good is that? That takes that already cheap Windows 11 key and makes it even cheaper. It's easy as placing your order. Bingo bango. You've got your new key on your orders page. You chuck that key into the activation screen and you're good to go. No more watermark of death. Use code GEAR to get 30% off for this month only. Link in the description. On with the video. Back to you, Nick.
One thing to keep in mind is this video is really for those people who are looking at building brand new and not looking on the secondhand market, because to be honest, in my experience, a lot of people are looking at brand new off-the-shelf parts. Which brings us to the CPU. This is an interesting one, and this is a CPU that I didn't know existed. This is the AMD Ryzen 5 9600, not the 9600X. It's usually about 10 Australian dollars cheaper than the 9600X, but the bonus being it has an included cooler, which means you don't have to fork out money for a cooler. And if you wanted to upgrade your cooler later, you could go ahead and do that. This one here will set you back around about 389 Aussie dollars, or whatever that number is in your region. I would say it's probably around about 200 odd US dollars. Seriously, not a bad deal. I went out and bought this one last week for the purposes of this video, and this is a CPU that when I knew it existed, I just had to have it. For me personally, when it comes to like the 600 CPUs in the Ryzen series, so like let's say originally the 1600, 2600, 3600, 5600, all the non-X parts, for me, they've always been excellent value for money, and the included cooler is just icing on the cake. The board I went for is the MSI MAG B850M Mortar Wi-Fi. Typically with MATX boards, I feel like they're pretty good value for money. They have everything you need and nothing you don't. This one in particular, we covered this one a little while ago. It has a rear M.2 connector for extra storage, but if you don't want to fork out the 400 odd Aussie dollars for this board here, there is an option, something definitely worth considering, and it's this board right here. It is the ASRock B850M Riptide Wi-Fi, sharing many of the same features as the MSI board, one less M.2 slot, but much cheaper. This one is probably around about 320 to 350 Aussie dollars, or whatever that is in your region. But I'm gonna be using the MSI board for this video because I really wanna use this board. It's a really cool looking board. And that rear M.2 slot, who doesn't want that? As for the graphics card, I decided to go with this here. This is the XFX Pro Gaming Radeon 9060 XT. I feel as though the 16 gig Radeon 9060 XT is a very good value for money card if you're looking at buying new. Much better than Nvidia's offerings right now. And to be honest, for the price difference and the performance difference, this is definitely one to look at, but make sure that if you're looking at buying this card, you get the 16 gig version and not the 8 gig version. The 8 gig bad, 16 gig good. Well, ladies and gents, you're gonna need somewhere to store all your things, and you want something that is going to be relatively quick for most of these modern games. And this is where the MSI Spatium M460 comes in. This is a 1 terabyte drive. This is plenty for your operating system and quite a few AAA games. This one here is around 99 Aussie dollars at the time of filming this video, but if you wanted something a little bit faster, there is an option that will cost double the price. And that drive is the Samsung 990 Pro. This drive is relatively good. It is very fast, but also more expensive. And if you're wondering what that dot on the end of my finger is, this thing right here, that's a blood blister because I had a pair of pliers slip and kind of bite the end of my finger. But for the purposes of this video, ladies and gents, I'm going to be using the Spatium M460 because it is the cheaper option. And I've used lots of these MSI drives over the last couple of years, and they've been really, really good. Keep in mind that I'm just recommending some hardware that I think would be good. You don't necessarily have to buy these exact brands, but this will give you a good indication of what to look for, right? You can kind of use this to translate it to other products that are the same or have similar specifications. And that's typically how PC building is. Nothing is always exactly the same. There's almost no two PCs that are exactly the same, other than if they're a pre-built from like Dell or HP or something like that. You know how that is. This is a memory brand that I only quite recently learned of its existence. It's called Clev, and this is the CRAS-V RGB. I've been using this memory quite a bit for a couple of reasons. First of all, it looks gorgeous and the price is not terrible. This is a 32 gig kit at 7,600 mega transfers that's going for around 160 Aussie dollars at the time of filming this video. Power supplies are a bit of a subjective one for me, to be honest, because I typically will choose something with a higher wattage only because if I'm upgrading at a later stage, I'll have the overhead. But if you're not looking at having the most insane gaming PC on the face of the planet right now, opting for something with a little bit less wattage is also a good option to save some cash. So something like the XPG Core Reactor 2 I found to be very good. This is an 850 watt power supply. This one is going for around about 159 Aussie dollars, which isn't too bad. Then you've got the Neo Eco, the NE1000GM from Antec, and this one's going for about 230 Aussie dollars at the time of filming this video. But for me personally, I'm gonna opt for the 1000 watt power supply for one simple reason. I'm building a black PC, so I want the B-roll to look cohesive, I suppose. But if I had a black version of the Core Reactor, I would definitely go with that. Some things are a little bit about aesthetics, but most of all, don't choose things that are RGB just for the sake of lighting. It is very silly. Depending on the case that you choose for your build, you may require some extra fans. I've chosen 2 of these Noctua Chromax fans purely because I had them on hand, but these are a little bit expensive for what you're getting. I don't always recommend Noctua fans just because they're Noctua. I do like the look of these fans. And again, I had them here, but there are some much cheaper options out there. There's fans from Scythe, there's fans from Thermalright, and plenty of other affordable fan brands if you're not looking at going full RGB, which, to be honest, most people do get RGB fans these days. Not this guy, not me. Finally, for me, the most important part of any build is the case. This is the Lee & Dan Cases A3 M-ATX. This is one of the most popular cases on the market right now for the M-ATX form factor, and it is very affordable at 145 Aussie dollars with every single feature you could possibly ever want on an M-ATX case. Lots of power supply support for 360mm liquid cooling if you wanted to upgrade later, and it's got a GPU support bracket. This case is one of our highest rated cases on the channel of all time, and I absolutely love this case. If you've never done this before or you've never seen how this is done before, I'm gonna make this really easy for you guys to understand. If you do know exactly how to do this, yeah, you probably will critique my technique because, I mean, that's the internet, isn't it? All right, first thing you want to do is open the socket. There's a little arm for the retention system that holds the top of the socket retention system down. You want to push that down, push it aside, lift the arm up, grab this edge of the socket and then pry it open. Be very careful here not to make any sudden movements. I'm joking, guys, it's all good. You'll be just fine. Now what you want to do is get your CPU, and you'll notice in the corner of the socket there's a little arrow. You want to line up the arrow on your CPU, which I'll show in a second, and there's little notches on the chip too. The CPU only goes in one way. It won't physically go in another way, so you can't mess the orientation up. You'll see these arrows on the corner of the CPU and inside the socket are now aligned, right? I'm just pointing with this thing, don't worry, it's all good. Once you've put your CPU in the socket, give it a little wiggle just to make sure that it's in place. Don't do this too hard. This is just to make sure that it's aligned correctly. Grab the top of the lid, push the lid down. Make sure it's lined up correctly. You can kind of feel it, there's a good spot. Keep the plastic cover on, then pull the arm down, and then your socket cover will come away. And that's it, guys, you've installed a CPU. Because we're using the included CPU cooler, we need to remove the factory cooler retention system. You see these 4 screws here, they're coming out, and these brackets are also coming out. What you want to do is loosen them. We're not going to be using these brackets at all, ever again. However, make sure you keep them on hand just in case you change your CPU cooler, because one of the most seen comments that we get on videos like this is, hey, I'm installing some cooler and I need those brackets. Where do I get them, or where are they? And they come with your motherboard every single time. You can buy aftermarket ones on eBay. You could 3D print them if you want, but I would keep them on hand in a box, in a drawer somewhere, or just somewhere where you know where it is. Next up, we're going to install that included cooler. All you want to do here is align the cooler with those standoffs on the board, and you'll want to crank that. But don't do it all the way. Just do one corner at a time in a pattern that goes around in a diagonal pattern. And you want to do this until the threads of each of the screws have grabbed. Don't do it up all the way yet, right? Just make sure they're grabbed. And once the cooler is a little bit tight, then you can tighten them all the way up. There is a hard stop that you'll hit. When you hit that hard stop, don't go any further. Otherwise, you'll never be able to get your cooler off, or you'll possibly damage your motherboard, cooler, or CPU. You'll see that now you have a cable hanging off your cooler. We want to plug that in because this will make the fan spin. You want to look at the headers on your motherboard. This one here is labeled CPU fan, and that's where we're going to plug it in. CPU fan right here. Installing memory is very easy, guys. You'll want to install it in slots 1 and 3, and they're counted right to left. So we're going to open slot 1, we're going to open slot 3. We're then going to put the memory modules into the slot. You'll notice there's a notch in the center, and this notch aligns with the middle of your DIMM slot. Right? And then you can use your fingers on each end of the memory module, press down firmly, and you'll hear it make a satisfying click. And then your RAM module is installed. And then you want to do that in slot 1. Finally, we're going to install our storage. This is very straightforward. This has a toolless mechanism. You want to push the button in and then lift the heatsink off. You can install them in either slot. It doesn't really matter. We'll put it in the lower slot. You want to then peel off this sticker. That is a thermal pad. Then put your drive in on a little bit of an angle, like this. Push it in, and then drop it into place. And this has a toolless clip to hold the drive into place. Right, look at that, pops up. You want to push that down, and then you rotate it, and it will lock the drive into place. There's one more thermal pad on the top side of the heatsink. You want to remove the protective plastic from that, and put your heatsink back in. And then, when building any PCs, I always recommend pulling all of the panels off your case. It makes life a whole lot easier. And the A3 ATX is one of the easiest cases to get inside of. Just lift off all of the panels without any tools whatsoever. There's no tempered glass on this case at all. There is a tempered glass version, but this ain't it. At this point with the A3 ATX, I would also recommend removing the power supply bracket. It does make it a lot easier to build in this case if you do that. You can check out our full review of this case as well as the gaming PC that I used to use in this exact A3 ATX. That's right, this is the original one that we had when we first reviewed it back in 2024. Next, we're going to install the motherboard. Now, you can lay your case down if it makes your life easier. For filming, it's easier for me to have it upright like this, and I'm so used to doing it that, yeah, it's just easier for me to do it like this now. We want to line the board up with the standoffs in the case. Again, like I said, I build standing up all of the time. Makes my life easier, makes it easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. And we'll just put all the screws in that we need. I say that, and then it's more difficult right now because of the angle I'm filming on. Now I would recommend plugging in all of the front panel cables because it's going to get a little bit trickier later on when building. Doesn't matter which order you do this in. As well as that, guys, if there's something that you don't physically use on your motherboard on the front panel, just don't plug it in. I always say that to people like, oh, what if you do want to use it? But what if you never want to use it? Then just don't do it. This case is really easy as well. It has a combined header for all the lights and switches, and everything is just built so well in this case that this is a first-time builder's dream case. I'm going to install a single 120mm fan as exhaust on the back of the case. As mentioned, I'm using a Knock to a Chromax fan. You can get much cheaper fans than these, and I would recommend doing a little bit of shopping around to see if there is a fan that is cheaper for you. But as I mentioned, I like how these look. I like the performance, but at like 80 Aussie dollars each, probably not the most affordable fan on the market, but you get what you pay for sometimes, and these fans are exceptionally good. Not good value, but good performance. But maybe that's the same thing, right? Maybe because the performance is good, they are good value. Who am I to say what's good value? All right, we're going to install the power supply. There's a couple ways to do this in the A3 ATX, and the thing is, when it's a build like this, no orientation is incorrect because, yeah, there's a lot of space left over with this kind of build. So you want to plug in that extension cable for the power cable, and I'm going to install it in the uppermost position on the side with the intake from the inside of the case because this system will not generate a whole lot of heat. And we're going to put it in the topmost position right there, and it kind of gets everything out of the way. It makes it a little bit cleaner. You could also install it on the front section as well, which is another orientation I would recommend if you're trying to use a bigger liquid cooler, but for this one here, this is more than fine. And there's just 2 screws that hold this bracket into place, and Bob's your dad's brother. Time to plug everything in and hope for the best. Time to put the graphics card back in. This is very easy. Basically, you want to line it up with that top slot on the motherboard and just give it a firm press. You'll feel it pop into place. Now this MSI motherboard is a little bit different. It's got a little lock on the board right here next to the RAM. Click it, and then you're good to go. And then you can do the screws up, and your graphics card is installed. We're going to give your graphics card some power, plug in a PCIe power cable, and away we go. And we'll clean it all up a little bit so it looks nice and clean for all of the fancy video shots and videos and all that stuff. The last bit is the A3 ATX does have a GPU support bracket. We will install this really quickly. It's magnetic. Put it towards anywhere really and just adjust it until it supports the graphics card. We'll put it on the end just so it looks a little bit cleaner. Finally, installing the last fan. I've put an intake fan on the side bracket of the A3 because it only requires one intake fan. Basically, it's going to blow even fresher air straight into the CPU cooler. And I'll talk a little bit about why I only decided to use 2 fans in this build as opposed to completely filling it out. And it comes down to price to performance. Let's kick it off with Black Myth Wukong. For all of these tests, FSR 3.1 was set to balance mode with the high preset of both 1440p and 1080p. You're also seeing live captures of all of the benchmark runs here. These tests have a mix of both frame gen on and frame gen off. The reason is because I've been speaking to a lot of people who play games like this and they don't even care about frame gen at all. I'm still not sold on frame gen at all. I think the results without frame gen are very impressive, especially at 1440p. Although there's no ray tracing enabled, I'd say that Black Myth Wukong is more than playable at those frame rates with the high preset. On to Cyberpunk 2077. Once again, these are live captures of some of the benchmark runs. Again, this has a mix of both frame gen on and off, with FSR set to performance mode with the ray tracing ultra preset. I've got to say, Cyberpunk on this card at 1440p with ray tracing averaging over 60 frames per second is quite impressive, given that just a few years ago, there was some top-end Nvidia and AMD cards that struggled to get over 60 FPS at 1440p. What an impressive little card. Moving on to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Warzone, for all of these tests, I use FSR 3.1, I set it to balance with the Ultra preset of both 1440p and 1080p. Once again, these are live captures of some of the benchmark runs. At 1440p with no frame gen, the frame rate is really good. An average of 151 frames is awesome. Notice that the 1% lows are a lot more consistent and the gaps are much smaller without frame gen, so don't use it. I don't recommend using frame gen when playing COD. Now, the reason why I know this is I play a lot of this game and frame gen does impact your input latency, and I've tested this quite a lot. Next on over to Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. For all these tests, once again, we're using FSR 3.1. This time it's set to quality mode with the Ultra preset of both 1440p and 1080p, and these are some of the live captures of these benchmark runs. For games like this, I'd say that frame gen is acceptable, except for the fact that the 1% lows are simply abysmal. I would recommend this game once again without frame gen. The only reason why I included it was because people are very curious about frame gen on newer cards. Most of these AMD cards generally perform quite well with Horizon Zero Dawn, and there's no exception with the 9060 XT. Alright, the last game is Forza Horizon 5. I love this game, but I made a little bit of a blunder here with these tests. I forgot that the ray traced mode only works in photo mode, so the results are identical with and without ray tracing enabled. This game on its own is super optimized and runs excellent without any upscaling required at all. Again, these are live captures of the benchmark runs, and there isn't really a lot to say about this other than the performance at both 1440p and 1080p is exceptional. But it's one thing to talk about benchmarks, but it's another thing to show you the actual real-world performance. So let's play some Call of Duty Black Ops 6. As this is the game that I main, you can see the frame rate counter up the top. It's a bit of an awkward angle to record on. And I've got no sound, so I can't really hear anything going on. Alrighty guys, let's try that again. This is with FSR set to quality mode. Getting about 140 FPS, which is really good at 1440p. Getting absolutely domed though. Again, awkward standing position, no sound. Yeah, this is nasty. Yep, triple kill with a shotgun. That's kind of not how I play this game, but you know. I'm getting pumped by a dude with a meat cleaver right now. Wouldn't be the first time. Oof. How's that 1 millisecond ping though, huh? I mean, I don't even know if you guys find this entertaining. I don't know. That's gonna be COD timing. Yep. Oh, it's so funny. Look at me just pre-firing like an absolute loser. All right, you get the idea. The performance for this system is really, really good. It's better than a console, that's for sure. I don't know about you guys, but the performance of this system is very, very good for the price. And the price for this system is on your screen right now in both US and Australian dollars, using parts that are available in both regions. There's also a bunch of Amazon links down below if you guys want to buy any of the hardware, and there's PC part picker lists and all that stuff down there as well, just in case you want to know what all of it is. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed playing games on this system. I've had this system up and running for about a whole week now. Look, I'm different. My hair's a little bit longer or shorter, or however it was when I filmed this, or whatever. This system is phenomenal. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised that my gaming experience on this system was as good as it is. This video is not sponsored by anyone. I was genuinely curious to see what the performance was like at this price point and this tier. And I gotta say, this is the PC that I would build right now for gaming. There is almost nothing else that you need that's more than this for any of the games that are out there, really. I mean, for me, for instance, Call of Duty at 1440p is perfect on this system. I don't need anything more than this. The only reason why my gaming PC is much more powerful than this is because I'm me. And I play at 4K, but for 1440p, yeah, this thing is pretty killer. I'm very surprised. So I gotta say, good work AMD on the 9600 and the 9060 XT 16 gig. The only real issue with this system is availability of this CPU. In Australia, it seems to be very easy to get this CPU. In other regions, I'm not sure it is as available as it is here. I can walk into any store basically and buy the CPU, but yeah, in the US and other regions, it doesn't look like that's the case. Let me know down below in the comments if the 9600 is an easy CPU for you to get. I think it's an absolute cracker of a CPU. The CPU cooler itself, being the Wraith Stealth, is relatively quiet. This is on a standard fan curve profile right now, and this is me just pointing my lav at the system. You can't hear this thing. And when you're gaming, it doesn't get much louder than this either. What a banger of a system. And I'm super happy that I did this. I really, really am happy that I did this PC. It is so cool. Let us know your thoughts, and let us know what hardware you would pick for a system like this down below in the comments. Yeah. As always, I'm your boy Nick. This has been the guy making videos about computers on the internet. I'll catch you next time. What a journey. This has been awesome. I really, really like this PC. It's really cool. Yeah, and it's like, it's not over the top. There's basically just RGB memory, and the rest of it is just, oh man, I love this thing. It's so good. I had so much fun with it.